what I've got. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone to this virtual Goldendale City Council meeting and for July 6, 2020. We're going to do the roll call. And do we have
Sandy, can you do the roll call real quick?
Just call everybody's name.
Just call and see if they're here.
Andy Holm. Filberto. Lauren. Mylan.
Here.
Jane. Shannon.
Here.
Julie.
I'm here.
And Andy's there, so just those four.
So no Phil and no Lauren.
Nope. And no Jane.
Jane's already resigned.
Oh.
Okay, we
I'm
have.
not really here. This is Andy. I'm not hearing everyone real clear. I'm not sure if anyone called my name, but I am here.
Good, we've got you counted, Andy, thank you.
Okay, just so we're clear, Roberto is not here.
This is Phil. I just joined. Sorry about that.
Okay, so Phil's here, and then is Lauren being here on?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have 5 of our 6-member council. We need a motion to excuse Lauren Mager from this council meeting. We have a motion.
This is Julie, so moved.
Shannon, second.
It's been moved and seconded to excuse Lauren Mager from this particular council meeting. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
The next item is the agenda, approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Here's Mylan. I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for this meeting and the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? Thank you. We'll go to department reports. We have Reggie Bartowski, Chief of Police of Goldendale Police Department, and we'll hear from Reggie.
Thank you, Mayor. The police department has been very busy with calls for service. This is definitely because businesses have begun to open and more people are out and about, which has increased our caseload. Roughly a week ago, we had a Black Lives Matter rally here in Goldendale. It was mostly peaceful with about 30 to 35 people in attendance at the courthouse lawn. I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department and also the Washington State Parks for assisting the Goldendale Police Department with that activity. The 4th of July was a busy night for the police department with fireworks calls. I do believe people did a great job with complying with the 6 p.m. to midnight fireworks ordinance that the city has. We had a few stragglers after midnight, and we had a few that started a little bit before 6 o'clock, but overall, I believe it was very well complied with. I'm happy to report that there was no arrests on the 4th of July. We did have 2 fire calls that night. One was for a bonfire that was over on Mill Street, which the Goldendale Fire Department put out, and also a small grass fire that was on Schuster Street, kind of at the corner of Schuster and Collins, which was put out very quickly, again, by the local fire department. And with that, that's all I have to report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions or comments for Reggie? If not, we'll move on to the next item of business is ordinances. And this will be the first reading of the critical area ordinance update that's been prepared by Justin Lee. Justin, are you on the line?
No, he's not. I'll do it.
Oh, okay. Oh, Larry's going to do it. Sorry, Larry.
Take it off mute. Okay, I talked with Justin and he says that we are ready to go with moving on to the next step of the critical areas ordinance update. And this is the
Mary,
first,
this is Julie. There's a lot of feedback.
okay, I'll just use I'll turn off that. Okay, is this better, Julie?
Yep.
Julie, is that better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, I'll try this then. Anyway, to go back to where I started before I got so much feedback, then I talked with Justin Lee and he says that we are ready. We've finished all the public processes. We have advertised and received comments, primarily from the Department of Ecology and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We've incorporated those comments into the critical areas ordinance update. We've had a public process. Now we're ready to move on to the ordinance piece of this. And there are two parts to that. One would be tonight's, hopefully, approval of or acceptance of the ordinance for its first reading. And then once that is complete, then we'll put the ordinance into a format that can be codified. And that'll be our second reading, so to speak, and that will be presented at the next meeting in July. So tonight, of course, as we know, the City of Goldendale is required by the Growth Management Act to periodically update its critical areas ordinance. It requires GMA jurisdictions to complete the updates in order to be eligible for various grant programs administered by the Department of Commerce, including the Community Development Block Grant Program. So this is a critical threshold requirement to be eligible to apply for those particular grants. The critical areas includes the following: wetlands, flooded areas, geographical hazardous areas, critical aquifer recharge areas, fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas. And this update revises those designations, definitions, and protections of our critical areas to achieve consistency with updated federal and state regulatory standards. So we believe, or Justin is recommending that the City Council move to accept this document for its first reading and direct staff to prepare an ordinance form at the next meeting.
Are there questions or comments from the council?
This is Phil. Just have a question. Was this the item that was reviewed at ordinance committee a while back ago?
Yes, it is.
It's just been a while. I couldn't remember if that's what we talked about.
Right.
Are there other comments or questions from the council? If not, we will need a motion to accept the critical areas ordinance update for its first reading.
Mayor, this is Andy. I make a motion to move to accept the critical area ordinance update for its first reading.
This is Marlon, I'll second it.
Thank you both. It's been moved and seconded to accept the critical area ordinance update for its first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So that's the first reading of the critical areas ordinance update. We'll go now to the next item on the agenda, and that's the report of officers and city administrator, and we'll begin with Larry Bellamy, city manager.
Okay, just an update on the airport planning documents. They've been submitted to Clickitat County Planning Department, and for review and processing, the CEVA checklist has the longest critical time path. That document has a deadline for comments of June 17th. So once that comment period has ended, we've incorporated any of the comments in for the airport site plan, binding site plan, and conditional use application, and then they'll set a date for hearing. As similar to the city of Goldendale is waiting for a chance to have public hearings again, the same is true for the Clickitat County Planning Department. They're holding off on any public hearings at the moment until we can move from phase 2 to phase 3. So as soon as that movement has been made, then we can, and we're past July 17th, then we can put it on the schedule for conditional use approval before the Board of Adjustment at Clickitat County. The second thing I wanted to mention was that the Public Works crew is focusing on and primarily working on in the mountains, clearing and piling up trees and brush to comply with DNR rules for cleaning up after the timber sale. This will be done in preparation for the piles being burned sometime in the fall or winter, depending on weather. The code enforcement is really focused on, so we're starting to get some more sunshine and some more heat and wind, and it's really starting to dry things out. So our focus now is to encourage and to try to get voluntary compliance with mowing down the tall grass and weeds. I've noticed around town that there are some of the larger lots that are complying, others that are not, and we'll try to encourage them to do it as well as the residential places also. And then the other thing that we need to start thinking about is the council member vacancy process. The mayor and I would really like to meet the deadline of 90 days since the notification of Ms. Roberts that she was going to resign from her position. And she resigned about the 1st of June, so we have to have the vacancy process finished by the end of, well, by the first part of September then. And and then the other thing that we wanted to be sure was happening was we'd like to do our best to have an in-person interview with those potential candidates for the council member position. So within the next couple of months, we want to start working on advertising for a period of 2 weeks for people who are interested in filling that vacant position. And then we want to hold the interviews by August 17th. August 17th would be the last meeting before the 90-day expiration date comes to pass. So hopefully, again, we can be done in person and it can still beat the 90-day requirement. But that's our hope, is to schedule that interview and selection process for August 17th. And that's it.
Okay. I have the mic. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate the report. We'll now hear from council members that have things that they would like to bring to the attention of the officers and the city administrator. We'll begin with our Mayor Pro Tem, Andy Hom.
Yes, Mayor, I actually have two things. First thing, I want to acknowledge the people that cleaned up the mess that was made at World War II Park. I saw something on social media that they spent about 3 hours out there cleaning up the mess of the fireworks. And we just need to make sure that people know that if you're going to make a mess out there, you should help clean it up either that night or the next morning. Also, Larry, you talked about notices for, weeds and stuff. I noticed east of Pioneer Surveying on the sidewalk, that next block there's a lot of weeds and stuff growing into the sidewalk, and I've had a couple citizens approach me with complaints about that. I don't know if you have sent notice to that property owner, but I had people request me bring that up. So, and that's it for me.
Thanks, Andy, and a complaint has been given to the office, so it's being acted on.
Thank you.
We'll go now to Mylan Walling.
Yes, Mayor. Again, Larry, I assume that we won't need another airport meeting until we have till we go into phase 3 public hearings.
Yes, that's right. We'd have enough allowance for the size of meeting to be able to cover that, yes.
Okay, and the one other item is potholes. Are we gonna work on them this month?
The potholes, quite frankly, in Milan is a little bit of an issue as it relates to which phase we're in, and the governor's directive as far as wearing face masks. It's very difficult to work in the with hot asphalt and still wear a mask.
Right.
And so that's the difficult part of this. We'll try to do it as soon as we can, but even now, I'm wearing a mask, and if you're wearing glasses and you're speaking a lot, or you're trying to shout directions, or just working it with that hot asphalt, it's pretty difficult to see, and then it's also very difficult to maintain that 6-foot separation. So it remains to be seen as to when we will be able to do that. It just depends on how things progress with the coronavirus and those guidelines that are put out by the state.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mylan. Next, Councilman Phil Ontiveros. Do you have anything that you would like to bring to the council?
Yes, Mayor, sorry. Bring a few things as before I get pulled back to working. First of all, I'm wondering about the weeds in the alleyways between Main Street and also Columbus, and I think there's an alleyway there. Is that part of the city, or does that belong to the property owner's responsibility?
The alleys are city right-of-way, but the maintenance, while the maintenance of the gravel is usually the city's responsibility, keeping track of and cutting down the weeds really should be the property owner's responsibility. So we will make an attempt to focus a little bit on the alleyways over the next couple of weeks and see if we can address that to a degree a little bit. Because it is difficult.
I wasn't sure because they're on opposite side of the property owner's fence or wall.
Right. Yeah, the alleyways are, there's a lot of different situations in the alleyways, but we'll try to encourage voluntary compliance by the abutting property owners.
Okay. The other question on alleyways, I can't remember where I saw it. I think it was area. But I'll have to correct it. There was an alleyway that has power lines on it. Does that belong to PUD to maintain under the power lines?
Well, the power line.
Or is that also property?
Yeah, generally the power lines are in the right of way for the alley. So if there's So that would be kind of the same type of thing. If there's weeds and stuff growing up around the poles, then that's really the responsibility of the property owner, budding property owner.
Okay, okay. Well, with that, also, I guess, I know we slowed down on the code enforcement part, but now that it's on phase 2, businesses are opening and stuff, maybe we can readdress that, bring it back, maybe go along with the phases, make up a plan for enforcement, slowly building up to where we were before. I don't know if everybody would be in agreement, but I think now that it's open for businesses to work back up again and people have different choices, that we can bring that back up again. And the other thing, another note, I just wanted to think, Reggie, give me 1 second. For the job well done regarding all the protests and giving everybody a voice in town. I think that was really great to give everybody a voice, everybody's going to speak up, and we had no incidents, so I think that was really well handled. So for me,
Thank you, Phil.
thank you, Phil.
Anything else, Phil?
That's all.
Thank you, thank you. Next, Councilman Shannon Middleton.
I'm good.
Thank you. And last but not least, Councilwoman Julie Buck. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor. I'm well, thank you. I just want to again, second Phil's assertions about the police department. Very proud of how they handled the protests and allowing our citizens the ability to peacefully gather. I know the department's been very busy with extra call load lately, so been doing a great job and really appreciate it. I also just want to put out there that the city of Goldendale now has 39 cases of COVID-19. The county is up to 72 cases. So we are still in the middle of this, and cases are increasing still every day. So please respect the businesses, wear your masks, and do what you need to do to protect others. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it very much. From the mayor's side, I have two things I wanted to talk about. One is a point of information on the application to move to phase 3. That's been approved, it's been submitted by the Board of County Commissioners, and it's been approved by the Department of Health. But Governor Inslee put a 2-week hold on all those types of moves from one step to another. So we'll be waiting a couple of weeks to hear if and when we go to phase 3. And the other item, probably not so much for council members as anybody listening to our broadcast, if we're going to ever get through this at all and get back to a normal life, it's going to require all of us to wear our mask, socially distance, and follow the sanitation practices, washing our hands. They're not hard things, but it's something that we have to do with real seriousness. This is a type of contagious disease that is very, very virulent, and we're going to have to get serious and be able to, all of us, do this as much as possible. Our stores are doing a good job, and we on the streets need to be doing as good a job as we can to be sure we have that mask on and to stay 6 feet away as much as possible. Those are the things I have. The other item will be public comment. Do we have anybody on the line for public comment?
No.
We don't have any record of anybody being online. If not,
Roger.
Just Roger.
yeah, Roger's here.
He's the only one that's a non-council.
Okay. So now we need to,
And Nancy.
Nancy's a real person too.
And Nancy's here.
Thank you, Sandy.
We need to now go to an executive session for the council dealing with a personnel matter. And this is in reference to 42.30.110, bracket 1, bracket small g. This has to do with a factor that we need to discuss. Those who should not be in an executive session, if you can please step outside. We don't know how long this discussion will be. We don't adjourn yet, right?
Don't you have to
Don't
say?
adjourn, and you have to give an estimated time to half an hour.
Okay. We will be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes,
So out of, at 8 o'clock?
so we'd be out at 8 o'clock. And it may be extended because of the details we need to discuss. I'm going to turn this over to Larry. He'll present the details of what we want to raise in executive session.
Okay. So I'm going to
Okay,
stop the.
Okay, good night. Good night.
Good night, Roger, and good night, Nancy. We'll wait for a minute till Nancy is done with her stuff.
All right. Good night, everybody.